Hello everybody, I'm Alexey Krabov, the organizer of SF Scala, and here we are on location for our first meetup of the year. The theme of the meetup is Akka, and we have several excellent talks. Here we have with us one of the speakers, Paul Kinsky.
Hi. Do I introduce myself now?
Yeah.
All right, I'm Paul Kinsky, giving a talk in a little bit about using Akka streams as sort of the Lego to connect different stream processing applications, right? Like you want to stream the output of a process to a file, to a WebSocket, or like upload it to S3, whatever. It's there for like just gluing different things together with stream processing. In this case, or in this presentation, I'm going to be showing how to write a really quick, simple server that uses Akka streams to serve a bunch of connections with WebSockets, collect events in real time via those WebSockets, publish them to Kafka via a single stream, and then you can use that with Spark, you can use that with whatever your preferred machine learning system is, just to do any kind of data analysis. But that's kind of the missing piece in a lot of things, right? Like you've got your cool new popular app, it's instrumented, you've got your back-end data processing system. How do you glue the two together? This is just one possibility, but I think it's a pretty neat one.
So it's a really exciting way to write applications, and I want to kind of step back a bit and kind of retrace your path to Scala and Akka, right? So it's almost exactly a year since we met at Northeast Scala in Boston during the snowpocalypse, right? And now we have another snowpocalypse in another part of East Coast, but not here, fortunately. So can you tell us a little bit, what transpired during this year, right? So you got to work on some of these technologies, kind of you joined San Francisco tech scene. Can you tell us a little bit what you see, in the Scala scene we're in?
I see a lot of diversity of application, right? People aren't just using Scala for any single use case, right? It's not just like Twitter and a few other small companies. Mm-hmm. Like I see people like Nitro using Scala for document processing, people using it for real-time events, just tons of companies using the same set of tools for different applications, mm-hmm. and all like contributing back to open source projects. Like, mm-hmm. for example, like I work at Nitro, I was able to open source something I've been working on there, Avro CodeGen, mm-hmm. just that we made internal, or that I put together internally for generating Scala case classes from Avro schemas. Mm-hmm. It's similar to like protobuffer thrift, right? Mm-hmm. And we're just using that internally, and we were able to give back to the community in some small amount. And it's a very non-zero sum situation because everyone's contributing technology, everyone's able to use that pool of technology, mm-hmm. and it helps us outcompete people who use worse languages.
Yes, that's actually has been very exciting, right? Because we needed Avro for serialization, and kind of we've seen the Scala protobuf using kind of very nice features, and once you started this and published it, we suddenly got folks just contributing and improving it, right? This is
this one guy, eBiggs, or I think is his name. He contributed like a whole new Avro parser because there were some features he was interested in implementing, mm-hmm. and he just like filed a request to do it, and then just over a weekend at some point just dropped this huge update that would have taken like a few days of work time if we could have gotten the time to implement.
So we really appreciate the contributors to this project, and I think it's really exciting to see kind of everybody else jumping in and using this. Can you talk a little bit? I think that's kind of very a good example for the kind of data pipelines which Akka Streams is a part of. So why for folks who don't know what SMAC stack or active systems are, like why do we send these messages in Avro, and what happens to them in kind of the life cycle? Where do they come from? Where do they go to? How does Akka Stream help them kind of move along?
All right, well, it isn't anything really specific to using Avro, mm-hmm. but we get these messages. They're created as a response to like various inputs by our backend service. Mm-hmm. They're published to Kafka. It's a distributed log, a very easy way to run like event queues or with multiple subscribers. Mm-hmm. And we just use Avro because that's that's very widely used in data science, and that allows our machine learning people to use the tools that they've already become accustomed to.
Mm-hmm. And so kind of when you see Akka Streams, and you mentioned Kafka, so what are the kind of typical data pipelines end-to-end? Can you just describe some of the components we use at Nitro, and like some components you see people use in other places?
All right, one of the big things that I think is going to become a widely used pattern is, well, pipelines, like you said, something that both reads commands from a Kafka topic, does some processing, right? Perhaps like downloads files, acts on them, uploads files, does whatever, and then publishes some result for that command with like some concept of failure in the result, right? So that way you can just have some complex piece of technology out there on its own with the only real part of your system it talks to being Kafka. So accepting commands from Kafka, publishing results to Kafka, you can very easily like parallelize, for example. You just run more instances, have them talk to Kafka with the same group ID. But yeah, basically the thing that both consumes messages from Kafka and then produces messages when it's done processing. I think that's going to be a widely used pattern.
Okay. And so, Akka Stream basically is a version of stream processing, and a lot of folks have not seen actually stream processing yet. They maybe heard the term, and kind of there are different kind of incarnations, right? There is Spark streaming, there are streams in Java 8, and right. So most people in data space still do ETL, and sometimes we kind of have this term no ETL because we don't want people kind of to stop and do ETL, but we want them to kind of do things real time. Can you talk a little bit, how kind of Akka streams are different from ETL, and what's kind of that makes them a different mode of working with your data versus reading things in ETL, typical ETL flows, like reading them from S3 and then doing something.
I wouldn't contrast it so much with ETL as just batch processing in general, where you have like one input and one output.
Yes.
With streams, it's more that you have a steady flow of inputs arriving at different points in time, and then you produce a steady flow of outputs with no required correlation between every input and output, right? Like you could have just like at the simplest, like a stream processing stage that groups messages like into batches, and it might receive like 1,000 messages and only produce like one sequence of messages, something like that, right? And the place I see for Akka streams is as sort of the glue between different things. It really enables composition because you can just take anything really that uses the reactive stream standard and combine it with anything else, right? Like, it's a very widely used standard. People from Netflix were involved, people from Twitter, people from various other companies. And sort of the dream, right, is that you can take one open source project using one implementation of reactive streams, combine it with another using a different implementation, and it just works. And that'll let us reuse even more components and avoid writing even more code.
Cool. And I'm sure that you'll cover more territory in your technical talk, which we're looking forward to. So I'll probably just wrap up with kind of a general question. So basically, it's been about a year. You've been doing Scala at Nitro, kind of going to meetups and kind of connecting with the Bay Area community. What's your personal experience, using Scala in industry, and what would be your advice to newbies who are learning Scala, or the companies who are basically trying to introduce Scala to their code base? What's your suggestions how to make it easier for individuals and teams? What you find works best? What is harder? Kind of any advice in this area?
Well, definitely ask questions if you have them. The community is really welcoming, really great. But before you do that, if you have a chance, just open up the Scala REPL, right? Just type Scala on the command line. Like, try something out. See if you have like a hypothesis, try and test it. Like, it's very, very easy just to type a few lines of code and like throw something together just to prove out a concept or like prove that some design or concept won't work. And it's much quicker. You'll really understand what you're doing better if you actually test out hypotheses as opposed to just like copy pasting stuff together. Yeah, just open up the REPL and try out whatever you're thinking of, see if it works or not.
Cool. I think this is really some of the best advice, I believe you can give to a newbie. Scala is interactive. Let's, open up a REPL and try things. Thanks, Paul, and we're looking forward to the talk.
Absolutely. Thanks.